Hello, everybody, and I am excited to be here tonight for another. I feel like saying episode. I feel like this is a television show, but I'm so excited to be here for another opportunity to connect with parents and to really talk to you about issues that I believe are important to you. We all know the climate that we're in right now in terms of social justice and equity, and I just really wanted to bring you some content that connects with that theme. So tonight we're going to be talking about raising royalty. And over the years I have had um different requests for support from our single Black moms in particular. And the one person keeps coming to mind whenever I am asked that question, and it is Patricia Shirley. So now most of you know her as a singer. I know her as a singer. I know her as a vocal acrobat artist. I know her as one of the most, I would say, the most incredible singer I have ever heard in my years on this planet. My husband and I had the honor of having her sing at our wedding ceremony and reception. And to this day, that experience, and when we listen to that video, we still get chills from the incredible just anointing and power that's in her voice. But recently, and in the past couple of years, I've gone to some events, and Patricia and I have had opportunities to have some just real conversations, and I've realized that her singing ability is unparalleled, and we know that. But in my humble opinion, she is a minister, she is a preacher, and she contains so much wisdom. Patricia has been singing for over 30 years. She's made appearances on over 18 projects with the likes of Donnie McClurkin, Mary, CeCe Winans, Pastor Richard Brown, Toronto Mass Choir. She's also made appearances with Mariah Carey, Drake, and Pharrell. But in all of that, she has remained the most anointed voice that I have ever heard. But tonight, we are not going to be talking about singing. We're going to be talking about her experience as a Black single mother raising a son who has turned out to be a fabulous, incredible young man. So without any further ado, please welcome to my virtual stage, Patricia Shirley.
Hello,
Patricia.
everybody.
And I am so happy that you are here.
Oh, I'm so
I am
happy to
so
be here.
happy that you are with us. Just give me 1 second. I think my microphone is hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect, perfect. So Patricia, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great.
Good,
How are
good,
you?
good.
A
I am
little
so
nervous,
excited.
but I'm good.
I am doing great. The climate that we're in right now is not great, but I can say that I am doing great.
Mhm,
God is still good. God is
mhm,
still on the throne, and though we have to navigate life a little differently right now,
mhm.
I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
good. So we're gonna get into these questions, and I want to start with a question that is kind of been, I will say it's my personal question,
Okay.
because I am married
Yes.
and I have the privilege of being married to a good man who is a really good father. So sometimes when I am speaking to single moms, I struggle to find an entry point, support them that feels authentic, because no matter what I say, I'm married to a good man who is a good father. So what advice would you give to married people who are trying to give advice to single parents?
Okay. This is loaded. I know this is a personal question. So I'm going to answer it like, I'm talking to my friend, Raquel.
Yes, please do. Please do.
I think that it really depends on each single parent is different. Their dynamic is a little bit different. So there is some diversity, and to recognize that every storyline isn't exactly the same. And so
Okay.
that there aren't blanket statements that you could really provide. I think that the best way to support anyone, whether they're a lone parent or not, would be to have honest dialogue and communication where you get to listen. And listening provides an opportunity for you to hear where the gaps are that you can lend and offer support. I think to assume that, every narrative is the same is probably detrimental to whatever it is that you're trying to do. So, a lot of people don't know that I was married. They don't know that. So they're assuming that I'm trying to get to that destination,
Okay.
And when I first, people say, "Oh, don't you want to be married?" And it's like, I really want to be
I've
by
been
myself
there.
right now. you know,
I've
no, I
walked
don't
that
want.
road.
Yeah, and so then it kind of it can create a wall. It can have the lone parents back up, like I'm incomplete. It can give them the feeling like they're not enough, and they're only complete, and which is a bit of a fallacy because I was in a marriage where I was lonely, right? So,
Okay.
not to say like that, like I think we sometimes view marriage as a destination, as an arrival point, where it's actually a junction where you get to, and you get to grow from there onward. So people think, oh, I'm married, I've arrived,
And you
right? So they
haven't.
just want you to get to that destination. And they don't see that this is as an integral part of your journey. So I think the best way for married people to be able to offer support is to be non-judgmental, right? So
Okay.
just because I'm single and I'm alone doesn't mean I'm lonely. There's a difference. And also not to assume that the narrative is the same. And of course, again, as I said, listening. Most of us communicate and we talk with the purposes of just getting our point across rather than listening to what
Yeah.
the other person is trying to say,
So
and
true.
what needs they have. And that can allow you to be able to fill in those gaps in an effective way.
Okay, so you said something that is very, very interesting to me, and and for all the single moms out there, I'm trying to craft these questions. If I'm failing, please do throw a question in the chat. I see all the comments here, and I will gladly pose
Oh,
your
you can see
question.
that because I can.
But
Yeah.
but this is something interesting because you said that most people see a single mom and they think that your goal is marriage. Like
Yeah.
that's what you're on this that's your journey right now
Yeah.
is to be married.
Mhm.
Talk to the single moms right now. What advice would you give them based on they're single, they have a child or maybe more than one child? What advice would you give to I know it wasn't on the questions I sent you, but
It kind of was, but
okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
but it was kind of at the end, like, what would I tell a single person? What would I tell a single parent? I think that they should enjoy being single, that they should enjoy their singleness,
Mhm.
because what married people don't tell you is the moments that they wish they were single again. You know,
Martin's
and
watching Patricia. You can't say those things.
right? And I mean that in the best possible way.
Right,
There are
right.
just there's, my mom has a saying that she says, little children, families come, they tie up your foot at first, you know, but along the journey, they tie up your heart,
Okay.
right? So
Okay.
what does that mean? It just means that, once you have a family, that becomes the priority. And
True.
many women get lost in serving and doing for their family, and they lose a bit of themselves, right? And then have to find some place in the journey where they get emancipated again. If they have an amazing husband that allows them to be launched out, that motivates them to go out there and find themselves, or they might have a friend or a particular event in their life that allows them to find themselves again, because I think that that's the biggest thing that I would say. Enjoy. Don't see being a single parent as a burden. See it
Mm,
as a reward, an opportunity for you to learn and dig deeper. There are challenges that you will face that other mothers won't face, and they will not build up a resistance for certain things that
mm,
you will build up a resistance. So, for instance, if you have been feeding yourself with the word of God up until this point, COVID-19 will hit, but you will not be phased,
mm.
right?
Right.
So, for me, I went on a 21-day fast and was seeking God's face. And I said, He was calling me to this thing. And then when COVID-19 really hit, I was in a different place. I was in a
You were
different
ready.
position. I was ready for what God was getting ready to do in this season. I had a different set of optics. And I think that that's what single parent, everybody's story must be different, right?
Right.
So, don't see it as a burden. I would say that that's one of the biggest takeaways. Don't see this as a part you're hurrying up to get through. This is a learning experience for you.
That is so important that you said that. And also I would connect to that. When parents are talking about their journey, don't single parents should not be made to feel like they don't have the same value to offer. So a
Mhm.
single mom should never feel like, oh, you can't speak to a married mom because we, for some reason, you think we know more than you do. Your experience is going to bring out things that I would not even consider. Your experience is
Absolutely.
is is, is going to bring out points of views and perspectives that won't even be at the front of my mind. So it's important
Right.
also as married parents to ensure that we include authentically single parents when we're having dialogue, and not always see single parents as, oh, we need to help you, oh, how are you
Mhm.
doing down there, like
Yeah.
not to bring that attitude, but to make sure we
Yeah.
realize that single parents have a lot of wisdom to offer. Because I'll tell you, the conversations that we've had at little barbecue or little party, and I'm like, wait a second, Patricia needs to do a parenting course, because even hearing you talk and hearing you pull the wisdom from your mom into what your experience is, I think that a lot of times married moms make that mistake of thinking that marriage gives us some leg up that we can use to kind of always lead single mothers along, and that is so not the case. That
Mhm,
is so not
mhm.
the case.
Yeah, we definitely don't want, I mean, the statistics are there. It's not,
Mhm.
in terms of comparison between male single parents and female single parents, that, there is a definite need, and there is more likelihood of child poverty because in terms of disparity of pay,
Right.
oftentimes that's also a challenge. And young mothers, are left with the burden, whereas um, young fathers are not often the situation, so they're going through that particular circumstance longer,
Yep.
right? So I mean, there are those challenges, but at the same time, we want to be seen as equals. We want to be
Yes.
seen as valuable. What we have to say is valuable, and that our lived experience carries weight. And we do not want to be pitied, and we do not want to be felt sorry for.
And I think it's important for friend groups to remember that
Hmm.
that as friends, if you're in a group of moms, because I have to catch myself from doing that, and it is a seat of privilege that I know that I sit in my situation, but I need to remember that I can learn from any mother, and I would say especially single mothers, because you have a unique added responsibility that I don't have.
Hmm.
Right. So when I say I'm stressed and you say you're stressed, that's two totally different things that we're talking
Hmm.
about.
Yeah,
But we can learn
absolutely.
so much from each other.
Amen.
Somebody said, Gigi, talk the things, talk the things. Gigi Boswell said, talk the things, Patty. It's so true, because a lot of times single parents are made to feel less than,
Yeah.
but we know that that is definitely not the truth. You had mentioned, and on as a comment on a live that I did last week, and we've
Which, by
actually
the way,
had,
was amazing.
oh, big
Thank
up
you
to
so
your
much for that.
pastors, Pastor Chantel and Andrew Beresford. Please big them up in
Whoop,
the
whoop, whoop,
comments,
whoop, whoop,
please.
whoop, pick
Big
them
them up. Brup, brup, brup. Can I do that? Brup, 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 brup. But you mentioned a lot that you chose your church
up.
because of your son. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about that? And maybe if there's pastors watching or going to watch this, what would you say to them in terms of the resources that they should have, not just for single moms, but for their children? Can you talk a little bit about your experience with that?
Well, my experience, I was going to another church and I enjoyed my church. I just happened to be singing at another event and saw Pastor Beresford there. And I said, "Oh, I really liked his energy. I'd love to hear him speak one day." And so I was looking for his church, but at the time he didn't have one.
Hmm.
So what I did was we followed each other on Facebook. So we knew so many people that we had so many common friends. And
Hmm.
I would watch some of his lives, and he was his Facebook lives, and he was saying so many things in terms of about race and race relations, Anybody who knows me, I'm a bit of a social advocate. So I immediately was drawn to, things he had to say. So I found out that he had a church, and I went to visit. And as usual, I brought my little crew, my nephew, and
All
I
your
feel like
peeps.
I have two boys. So I went with them to the church, and when I got there, we enjoyed the service, blah, blah, and we went back to, my son said to me, "Oh, I really liked that church. I enjoyed myself." And I thought, "Oh, okay, cool. He enjoyed that,
Mental note.
And mental note that he vocalized it. As a
Right.
teenage boy, you know, you almost never know when they like something
They
unless they
keep it.
don't like it.
They keep it in here and they keep it in here. They don't
He's a
verbalize.
really quiet kid. So he said, "I really like that church." So we went back to church as usual. And he said, "Hey, Mom, uh, when are we going to go back to that church?" And I said, "Oh, well, we can go back next week if you like." And we went to visit again. And a few more times, because he had inquired. One Sunday he went there, and they were on a fast. So they were going to be completing a fast, and they had maybe 4 days left. And he said, "You know what? Even if you haven't been fasting with us all the time, you can jump on and fast the remaining days. No bread, no meat, no sugar,
Mhm.
nothing. But really, they could eat stuff." So, and that Monday, that Sunday night, he packed his salad and water, a bottle of water, and I was like,
Okay.
"What?"
Okay.
The
Okay.
meatarian
Okay.
packed his,
Okay.
and was gung ho and was telling us what we couldn't eat that way. I was like, I wasn't really planning on going on this thing, but okay.
But since we're doing this,
But
okay.
if you're doing it, I'll do it with you. And we visited frequently after that, because I saw what was happening in him. I could see he had been saved for years. And he always was a good kid. He always prayed. He always read his Bible. Really didn't have any challenges there. But I could see something had been ignited in him.
Hmm.
And as a result, I relocated, not because I didn't like the church I was already going to, but I feel that it is my responsibility to make
Hmm.
sure to present the opportunity for him, or to create atmospheres where he can encounter Jesus Christ the way
So
I
wait,
encounter
wait
him.
wait a second. You said you were okay where you were, but you actually left for your son.
Yes.
Okay, those who are watching, I need you to take that in for a moment. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Patricia, but I think this is so powerful. I think a lot of times as adults, we go to churches where we are comfortable
Mhm.
and we like the music, and the kids and the youth will
Well,
figure
we
it out.
grew up like that, right?
Yeah, but I think
We
it's
went
so
where our
powerful
parents
that you
went.
did that. So powerful that you did that. Sorry to interrupt, but I had to say that
No, no,
if
no.
if your children aren't being fed and communicating this, especially your teens, this
Mhm.
is big, Patricia. Like, to me, you're like my shiro. You're like my my mommy shiro for doing that, because many parents would not do that. They would not do that. So continue. You said that you
Well,
he participated
again,
in this fast. Go ahead.
I fell in love with Jesus Christ at a very early age, and I wanted to make sure that I created opportunities for Nathaniel to encounter him.
Mm,
So if you meet somebody often enough, eventually you'll start noticing the nuances in them that are really
yep.
attractive. And so that's what I wanted to do. And since he was having a glimmer in his eye, this new found thing, I wanted him you know, to date. I wanted
Yes.
him to date Jesus.
Yes. Yes. That's a real
So,
thing.
and it's a real, thing that I wanted him to get. And I recognized that we were living in two different times.
Yep.
When we had gospel music, we had concerts like dirt, we had all kinds of things. Our whole lives were church. We
We're in
had,
church.
choirs. We had all kinds of different things. And I recognized that his opportunities to bump into Jesus that way was not going to be, as
Mm.
epic as ours were. He didn't have as many things to keep him engaged. And so now that he was engaged, I needed to make sure that I fostered that.
Wow. I think that is so incredible, because we lose our teens. we lose our kids at their teenage years because I really believe it's because we fail to do what you just did, to be sensitive to what is the spirit saying in their lives. What are they showing you they need? And you said he needed to date Jesus. He needed to fall in love with
Mhm.
him. He needed to have consistent, good, positive encounters that would cause him to desire a deeper relationship. So, parents, those of you who are watching who are parents, it's important, especially when your kids are maturing into that teenage time
Mhm.
where the faith that you've introduced them to, they're going to decide if they're going to take it as their own. And we need to be
Absolutely.
responsive to that. If you're a pastor and you're watching, you need to know what's happening in terms of how your next generation is responding. We can't just cater to the adults. We need to make sure that there is a
Right.
generation to pass that baton to. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful for Surf City. I say it all the time. If we lived a
Yeah.
little closer east, Pastor Andrew, you would see me. I'm a family. But I don't think that you're the only parent who's had that experience where
No,
their teenage kids are getting fed and are growing. So thank you for sharing that, because it is, I think it is
oh,
it
for
is
sure.
it is paramount for single parents also, because you are able to find such a strong, positive male role model, even in your pastor,
Yeah.
that can serve to support your son also, right?
Absolutely. And it was great to he had other men that looked like him in leadership and that were happy to worship, happy to praise. And he fell right in line. Soon after, he was asking me, "Mom, have I been baptized? What does that mean? How,
Wow.
and then we would have engaging conversations about the Bible, about the service, and it was a way for me to continue to keep talking to him and engage on a topic where we could both really um, connect. I think it's
Right.
important.
Right.
And he felt like I was knowledgeable. I think it's important as a parent that you don't lose your position of influence.
Say that again. Say that again for the people in the back.
I think as a parent, it is paramount for you to remember that you
Hmm.
cannot lose the power of influence over your children. You get to
So
that stage
true.
where they think, mommy knows everything, right? And they may grow up to realize that you don't know everything, but if you stay engaged with
Mm,
them in the learning process and get interested in things they're interested in, so that you can suss out the things that they need not to be interested in.
true.
It's important for you to field some of this stuff. I want to know what music. So, yeah, J. Cole is in my, I need to know.
Yep,
I
you
need to
do.
know. I need to know what's going on. I need to be a part of your world and communicate with you about your world. I'm like, why would he even do that? That's whack. Like, and having dialogue with my son, to the point that his friends come over and they also have dialogue with
I
me.
love it.
So it's really, I was really, 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 really happy to know that my power of influence over my son, I was afraid of my mom.
I think I think most
Most
West Indian
Caribbean
children were.
children, children who belong to Caribbean parents, they were afraid of their parents. I was afraid. I was afraid of disappointing her.
Mm,
Right. Um, so there was I think most moms don't like their daughters during a
mm.
particular teenage. They're like, what?
Did that little session, the little time there with a little dicey.
Right. And I was definitely that girl. But I knew I wanted to be able to engage with my kids in a way that allowed them to feel comfortable, always creating open door policy, transparency, and I wasn't above reproach. If I made
Mm,
a mistake, I needed to come to you. I needed to say I was sorry, or I didn't do the right thing, or this didn't line up with our core values. And I'm
mm.
wrong for that, and I'm sorry. And I let
I
you
love
down.
that. I love that. And you mentioned being involved, being maintaining your influence. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit, because I think one area, and please, if you're watching and you're liking this video, please actually like the video, right? We want you, we need some interaction on this video to make sure that we're delivering the content that you want, and we're asking and answering the questions that you're interested in. But you talked about staying engaged. And one area that our Black parents, and I would say particularly our single moms struggle with is at school. and
Mhm.
and and how our sons, and I will say our sons, because when I'm at school, I'm an educator, I see every student like they're my own kid, like they're my own family. But how were you able to navigate the education system with your son in terms of advocating for him to ensure that he was okay and that he could be successful?
Well, he had a lot of challenges. So very early on, we found out that his working memory, his short-term working memory, he had challenges with that, and
Hmm.
that he could easily be distracted, and it was very difficult keeping him on task or keeping him to retain information that they had taught day to day. If they didn't revisit it on a regular basis, it was as good as gone, you
Hmm.
know. And so this was challenging for him because it actually bled over in his confidence level and bled over into the playground, right?
Hmm.
So because he thought he wasn't getting it, he was becoming more of an introvert, becoming more quiet, and he later on developed more anxiety,
Okay.
and picking at his head. He would literally scratch it until it was sore.
Oh. Hmm.
He jittered a lot. It was one thing after the other, and it just progressively got worse. I think one of the things I think worked for me is staying in constant communication with my son
Okay.
about how his day was. I saw when you were talking to Pastor Andrew and Pastor Chantal, and they said, having that roundtable. I continued to keep having roundtable with my son and to talk about how he felt. What did the teacher say? What would he have done differently? And being really interrogative in terms of, what was his takeaway from each
Right.
day? Was he being empowered to learn, or was he feeling very defeated? And what was the source of that? I think that having those dialogues with him on a regular day, and of course, staying in constant communication with his
With the
teachers,
teachers.
because what I found as a single Black parent, I kept my married name because I wanted to be able to put his father's name, my name, and his name all together,
Okay.
and because there were some stereotypes of me showing up by myself, and they began to talk over me,
Mm.
almost as if like, okay, well, Nathaniel said, I'm here. I'm present. I'm here. I'm
I'm
here.
here.
As a matter of fact, Susan is your name. Last year you said, and I'll just pull out files. So I
Yeah.
was very on top of it. I was very in your face. I was not and I was a younger mom. Like I had him at 20, 24. So, at that time they had decided through their implicit bias what
Yes.
my narrative was. And I think they weren't anticipating. So I had to advocate very aggressively. And I later learned as he progressed to middle school to ask, what's the exit strategy for these IEPs?
Mm. And Patricia, I feel like I want to speak in a heavenly language right now, because a lot of times parents are, they just don't know how the process works. That question that you asked is the most important question for any parent who has a child on an IEP, an individualized education plan. Without the answer to that question, your child will probably be on that document right through middle school, right through high school, and it's going to stream your son or daughter into jobs and careers that may not be where they want to go.
Mhm.
You need to ask that question, and I know that it's scary sometimes to ask that questions, because they'll bring you into a room with all these psychologists and teachers and professionals, and you may not feel like you have a voice. But what I hear you saying is find your voice, because
Mhm.
no one's going to be able to ask that question like a parent.
That's right. No one knows your kid like you do. No one sees the potential in your child like you do.
Hmm.
They get paid to do their job. You were called to do your job. So there's a difference. He doesn't call the equip, he equips the call. He called you
Oh.
to be this parent. So if you're gonna come to the table, and he's gonna give you what to say. Don't be afraid, because you are the only voice that's there for your child. So you really have to dig deep and find that boldness. It just like if you were going into a business, you'd want to know, how
Yes.
do I get out of this thing if things get hairy? Like when, crap hits the fan with this business and it's not working, what's the exit strategy? I need to know that you guys are setting him up to give him a modified learning plan. How is he going to get caught up? Because at some point he's going to have to be integrated with the rest of the class. How will
Exactly.
he be prepared for that? What will this look like for him in the post-secondary portion? How will I be able to make sure that his dreams to become this becomes a reality? What do I need to do? What are the other things? Yeah. And then you also need to look and see the things that your children are very good at, what they are excelling at. And then you want to be able to, put things in their wheelhouse that will allow them to
Mm.
advance in those areas and try to integrate them in other parts of their learning strategies.
And it connects back to your earlier statement where you said that you are involved in your child's life. So
Mhm.
you can't advocate for a child that you don't know. You
Mhm.
can't advocate for a child who has left you on the outside of their life looking in, and
Right.
you don't even know their interests. You don't know what to put in their wheelhouse. You don't even have the space to ask those questions. You go into teacher meetings and it appears the teacher knows this child more than the parent.
Mhm.
So your the power of your advocacy comes from, it goes right back to relationship. That's why I tell parents the enemy will gnaw away at your relationship with your child
Absolutely.
when they are in those preteen years, and he gnaws at the vine because he
Yeah.
knows when you are needed to stand in prayer and in person that you're not going to have a ground to stand on because there's no
Absolutely.
relationship. So
Relationship is key.
talk about how do you as a mom build relationship with your son? Because some people will say it's easier with a daughter. How have you build relationship with your son? People are saying we're going to need more time on this one, and I believe them. Come on, let's just go in deep now. How do you build relationship with your son?
Um, I started out by us just really spending time with each other, doing activities and involving my son in the process of what we were doing. You
Mm.
know, sometimes for us, we just did what our parents said. We're going to Crystal Beach. Yay, we're going to Crystal Beach.
I have been to Crystal Beach many a time.
Okay, we're going to Crystal
Pack
Beach.
up the car. We're going
With
to Niagara.
green sandwiches and hard dough bread and fried chicken and foil wrapped up in foil and all corn on the cob or whatever. And sister so and so is bringing potato salad. And we were so glad to just be going out somewhere
Yes.
with them. So
Yes.
we weren't going to tell them that that's not what we wanted to eat.
Yep.
we
We went
wouldn't
and
tell
we
them that
ate
we
it.
wanted
We ate the
funnel cake.
corned beef sandwich. We ate them.
Yeah, we ate every bit of it. But for me, I involve my son in the process.
So important.
Yeah. So, hey, bud, what do you want to do? What new movies are out right now? What can we see? What did you want to see? He goes, I don't know. Okay, well, why don't you look up the movie and then tell me what times, and then we'll go
Oh,
from there. Or, hey, do you want to go karting? Why don't you bring a couple of your friends, and then we'll do that.
you see how
Or
you're strategic? You see how you're strategic?
because
Bring
I
your
want to know
friends.
who you're hanging out with.
That's right.
I want to know them. I want to know them.
I want to know who they are.
I
I
want to know.
love it. But that is the wisdom of parenting. If you want to get involved, you have to be in their space, right? You have to
Mhm.
be around them. That means you may not be able to go to Crystal Beach. I think it closed down now, but you might not be able to
No,
go there because they don't
but
want to
we
go
went to
there.
Wonderland. We did all of it,
You
and
gotta go where you want to
I
go.
I,
And
ate- I figured out ways to get him involved in what we were doing for birthdays. I said, let's plan it. Who are you going to be inviting? Who? What are their names? What are the and having them in the home and just getting to know who they were. Yeah.
so let me ask you this, Patricia. This is totally unscripted now. So
Oh
did you
God.
grow up in a home where you couldn't sleep over anybody's house, but they
No,
could
I
come to
couldn't.
yours?
They could come to my house, but I can't sleep over
You
nobody's
know,
house.
nobody's house.
Mind you, when we were going to like our church friends, there was
Totally
some sort
different.
of leniency. But
Yes.
I remember I don't know if my mom fell down and hit her head this one particular weekend, and she said I could go to a friend's house to sleep over. I didn't even ask her two
Pack your
times.
bag,
I
God.
want to make sure. I just I just hurry up and pack my stuff to go.
I love it. I love
So,
it. But you
but
know
my
what? We still have some of that, but I think that we're wiser now to know that we have to give a little. I give a little bit, not a lot. It's a little bit, a
you
little
never
bit.
go nobody else to sleep. So I'm not giving any leeway there.
Patricia said no. Sorry,
No,
Raquel.
so,
Sorry. I'm coming off the
well, no, not
broadcast.
that one.
But for us, we made this rule that you can't stay at anybody's house that Martin and I don't
Don't know.
know both of the parents.
Hmm.
That is
That's fair.
that's the
That's fair.
starting point for conversation. But okay, so you've been on this journey.
Yeah.
You were married and now you're single and
Hmm.
you're raising this son who is an incredible. I should have invited him on. He's such an incredible young man. I see you post things about him online and I'm so proud, like I'm my nephew or my baby. But I'm so proud and I'm proud of him and I'm proud of you. Right?
Yeah.
You've done such
Thank you
a
so much.
phenomenal job supporting him and pushing him forward. But along your journey as a mom, what has been a key resource for you? And it can be anything, a person, a website, a book, but a key
Oh,
resource that you would say has made the difference in your parenting journey.
I'm going to say my village.
Talk about it.
Because I think that whether you're a lone parent or in a marriage, you need a village. You need people who are going to be in your corner. I mean, I might have done a lot of the heavy lifting, but there were times I couldn't do the heavy lifting, and I needed a village. I needed my village to be there. I needed my village to get through to him when I was overwhelmed with some of the challenges that I was facing with him, and I needed another voice, someone else that maybe could get through to him and saying, hey, this is the kind of stuff your mom is talking about, or blah, 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 and be able to reach them in a way. He says, how would you feel if XYZ? And, sounding boards, people said, hey, you're being a little, irrational because that
Feeling
happens. It happens, right? I tell the story of, my mom once going into the supermarket and she said to me, listen to me, we're going into the supermarket. I don't want you to pick up nothing. I don't want you to pick up no sweetie, no candy bar, no cereal. I'm going in there to pick up just a few items and I'm coming back out. So of course, now I'm practicing my not asking anything. And I get to the checkout line and see the Cracker Jack box then,
Mhm.
you know? And I really, really want one. So I finally get to the checkout line and I said, Mommy, can I please have a Cracker Jack box? And my mom says, what I tell you? I said I don't have it. Me no got it, me no happy. And emptied out the change purse with the little lint that had nothing in there. I was like, and she looked like she went postal, and I was looking at her like, but I now as a single mom,
I get
I
it.
recognize I have $25 to get in the store. I don't need you to make me feel bad about not being able to get you the cereal that you want. I need you, and I feel like hindsight is 2020.
Yep.
So when you say that my mom's wisdom, I recognize that she had a lot of different challenges, and she didn't know how to manage herself. She didn't have outlet. She didn't have the same outlets. So I was really aware of how I was going to respond in the middle of adversity I was going to teach my child how to respond to adversity,
Mm.
right? I was going to be the example that I wasn't going to fall apart. And this is not, to no shade
No,
at mom,
no,
right?
but this is your
But it
story.
was a learning experience. She
Right.
she developed an ulcer going through a divorce, which I did not.
Mm.
So I just I said, okay, you know what? I'm out. I need my sanity
Mm.
in order to raise this kid. So, and I can't make the same compromise. I came out with a lot of my dignity, not feeling less than, because I was able to observe and kind of extrapolate from her experience,
Right.
what I wanted for myself and what I wanted for my child.
And going and we didn't talk about talking about this, but since you're hoping to do, I'm gonna push it a little bit. Going through a divorce, I know that we come from very similar church backgrounds. and I didn't know you. I didn't know you when you were going through your divorce. But there are moms who are watching who are going through that, or who have just gone through that. Can you just speak to them for a few moments? Because I think divorce in the church can be so lonely, and it shouldn't be. It can
Mhm.
be so alienating, and it shouldn't be. I think moms who go through a divorce, especially when they're going through it, we kind of have this, oh, well, God said until death, and I don't know what happened over there. Like we have this
Yeah,
judgment
judgy
around
pants.
it.
It's
Yeah,
judgy pants.
yeah.
It's
So
just
talk a
so
little bit about,
judgmental.
and talk to the judgy pants people. What would you say to them?
You know, I think the best thing to do is to refer back to how Jesus responds to judgy people.
Mm,
Jesus responds to them every single time. And it almost is, it really nullifies their argument.
mm,
Whatever it is. And they have to remember that they're being used as a part as a pawn for the enemy.
mm.
You don't want to be in that part on that side of the equation. You want to be on the
Right.
side of the equation that empowers people to prosper, which is what blessing is. Blessing is the empowerment to prosper, and a curse is empowered to fail,
Mhm,
right? So you want
mhm.
to be on the side of the equation where your fellow people who look like you, people who belong to your community, are empowered to see the best lives they've ever experienced on this side of Jordan. Period, right? And when we get to the point where we're, throwing stones, he says, "He who is without
You go first.
sin,
Right.
then you throw the first stone." And then he looks at her. What I love about Jesus is that he's the first feminist. You
Mm,
know, he comes and he empowers her, and he says to her, "Woman, go thy way and sin no more." And I also want to tell, you know, I want to testify to women who are in their single state as well. Martha and Mary are in, this, there's the scripture, I think it's Luke,
mhm.
and Martha comes out to Jesus and says, "Jesus, why you can't tell Mary to come and help me into the kitchen? You don't see enough work is here to do." And he says, "You worry about a lot of things, but there's one needful thing, and Mary has chosen that part.
Yes.
The best position for you to be in is at the feet of Jesus." And
Mm,
so I believe that I've only met upon this kind of success simply because I stayed put at Jesus's feet. I asked when I didn't have a man, I looked to him. I looked to
mhm.
him, my father. I looked to him as a guide, everything you're going to need in this life, you're going to find it in that book.
I love it.
And you can't find
I
it if
love
you're
that.
not looking for it.
I love that. And I love the fact that you are holding those are who are judging accountable. And you're not holding them accountable to Patricia, you're holding them accountable to the word. We
Yeah.
can't be the reason why our sisters or brothers who are going through a divorce have a terrible time.
Hmm.
We should be the reason why they felt loved and supported through the entire process. And
Right.
sometimes, even as married people, we can kind of turn up our nose and think that we're better. But as you said, let him without sin cast the first stone. Just because if we were dirty laundry, tie up in a bag behind we, why
That's
people
right.
can't see the things that we are going through and that we are
Exactly.
struggling through, right? But
Exactly.
it's so important because I feel that there are a lot of divorced single parents who feel like they don't have a right to ask for help or support in the church because you have people looking at them saying, "Well, me never tell you, giving that
Hmm.
negative, giving that negative vibe or saying that negative energy, that negative spirit that kind of leaves them isolated. And then they don't feel comfortable accessing the same village that you have just said was so critical to your success as a parent. So we have to do better as a church community. We have to do better as a church community. It's so important. It's so important because I've heard that narrative so many times. When people get pregnant out of wedlock, when people get divorced, and I've had to repent for how I've treated somebody who got pregnant out of wedlock. I've had to go back and repent, but I did because I knew that I was wrong. Because just like you said, it's my responsibility as a believer to learn how to show Jesus's love at all times,
Hmm.
even when it's
Mhm.
hard, because sometimes it's
Yeah,
hard.
and he never says that it's going to be easy. You know, every day you said something on the last live that we need to reflect and we need to audit.
Yes.
It's reflecting and reflexivity. The difference between the two. One says, I could have done that differently. The next thing it says, I wonder why I was motivated to do this in the first place.
Right.
What pushed me to make what experiences have I had in my past that made me feel justified to do this? We have to worry about ourselves. If you ever in a place in your Christianity where you feel self-righteous, where you
Mm,
feel, the self-righteous indignation, like you feel like you should be casting judgment. It is not your responsibility to judge other people.
mm.
The word of God it is black and white. It states
Yes.
what it states. But at the same time, you have to know the difference between Moses' law and the law of grace, right? And when what
Amen.
we're operating under a law of grace. That doesn't mean that I don't tell you that your poop stinks. If I'm your friend and I love you
You're
and
going
I
to
want
say
you
it.
to grow and I want you to be better, I said, I'm going to be with you in this thing. But you need to clean up your act. You
Yeah.
need to do things differently. If you really want me to help you, I can help you, but you can't stay in this mess.
So
Right?
it's accountability without the condemnation.
Right.
Right. Right. I love that. Didn't I tell you guys? I tell you guys are listening to this woman sing all this time, and someone need to give her up a mic and a glass of water on the pulpit with a little doily on top for when she finish for when she finished preaching. So tell me, what would you say to? And we actually had it as a question. I can't find it because it's way up in the chat, but it's something that I've been thinking about also. It's always comes up from a single mom that what do I do when the father of my child just doesn't get it? We are not on the same page, and it's not working the way I imagined it could work. Co-parenting is causing conflict. What advice could you give to that mom? That's a
You
tough
have to
one, I know.
it's a tough one because each situation is really different. What
Yes.
you're able to do, what you feel empowered to do. you know for me, I had those moments where we just didn't agree. I wanted my son to braid his hair. I wanted him to get it over with. I didn't want him coming back at 21 saying, oh mom, I just decided to comb my hair. I
Get it
wanted
out of your
him.
system now.
Yeah, he said, I want to have my hair like Karate Kid. And, you know, Jaden Smith had the braids, and I said, okay.
Yes.
I said, all right,
Yes.
cool. Because at least I can monitor this. It's done neatly. I decide, I still have some control. And his father was not having it. And his father was so upset, and it created so much tension.
Mm.
If we cut his hair, if we put designs, he resisted me a lot. And I wanted Nathaniel to be creative, and I wanted him to, express himself through his own image, like how he wanted to
Yeah.
present himself. I wanted to have him to have an identity, and I wanted to see what that identity was.
Was gonna
What
be.
areas could I guide? What areas could I offer correction? And I can't do that if I'm telling him, if I'm dictating. And I didn't want a dictatorship. I wanted him to have a mind of his own. I wanted to develop his own independent thinking and problem solving. We didn't agree. And again, I can't say, I feel like when a single mom prays, when she prays, something has to happen.
Something have to shift.
Something has to
Something
shift.
has to shift.
Something has to shift.
Okay,
Because
but talk about it, because sometimes we think prayer is like a something I'll do after. Talk about the power of prayer in this
well,
situation
prayer
and
is a
even in
part
your
of
life.
it's a part of um my routine.
Mm,
I also taught it to him. So not only did I instilled, prayer as a tool of advocacy. Like I'm
mm,
going to my bigger, I'm going to the person who's going to defend me, right? Because David said to Goliath, today my God will deliver you into my
mm.
hand. He
That's
didn't
what's
say I'm going to
happening.
kill you. He didn't say I'm going to get you. He didn't say I'm going to swing this stone and lodge it right between your forehead and knock you out. He said, today
Today.
my Lord will deliver you into my hands. And that is how I approach every problem. Because I
Mm,
believe I was teaching my son how to be a dominant force in the earth, because that was
Mhm.
his calling. That is who he is designed to be in the earth. So when I tell him that you are a king, that you are a lion, that you are meant to dominate,
Mhm.
you are meant to subdue, you are meant to be successful and dominate in every sphere and in every realm. So
Mhm.
if there is an area that you feel like you're being defeated, you must turn to God. And so
Yes.
I said, that, and I can't tell him to do something I'm not doing, right?
Amen.
So
Amen.
I also troubled God for that, but then I walked it out. I walked it out as if it was already being done. And then I tried to also find happy mediums, where I said, okay, I understand that you want to do this. How about this?
Mhm.
Not being so married to a particular idea or concept without thinking of alternative ways that I could work with them. Okay, I don't like this, you don't like that. How can we meet in
Meet
the
in the middle.
middle? And giving them an opportunity to contribute, right? Because I feel a lot of times men feel like when you're a single mom that you just have this attitude, and we do have this attitude, and we don't need you. I do this all by myself.
I
But you
go
need to
do
be
that all
careful
by
about
myself.
yeah, you need to be careful because that becomes a thing that you put out there, and then that becomes the reason why you stay single.
Oh, wait. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Erks! Holland, pull up. Wait, wait. Talk about that for a second. I don't want to talk about that. I want you to talk about that for a second. What you project and put
Yeah,
out
what you
there.
project, what you're projecting out
Yes.
there, also um, determine.
Can
And I did that for a long time, and it wasn't until I started to learn that I'm working on me to become a whole person. That's true, but it was never his intention for me to be a lone ranger. You know, he was always planning for me to be the deputy to somebody else's sheriff. He was never. It was always going to be Batman and Robin.
Mhm.
It was never intended for me to be a superhero all by myself. Because
Right.
every superhero has a kryptonite, so you need something to offset that, right? And
Mm.
if you project too much of that, it also tells people that when you need help, that you won't get it.
Yeah.
It also means that your friends won't help you. It means other people won't advocate because it's, oh, she got it,
She's good. She's strong.
she's
She
good,
got it.
right? Which is also a fallacy. That black girl magic. I'm not gonna get into that. The black girl magic. I love it. It sounds nice, has a catchy tune to it, but
But
it also has a negative to it because it gives a fallacy that black girl magic, that we don't have feelings, that we don't get hurt,
mm,
that we don't need, that we're not vulnerable,
you don't have
right?
desires. You don't
We
have
have
that.
desires and
Yeah.
wants and ambitions, and we need support. Black girl magic makes us say, I'm magical, I'll make it happen,
Mhm.
and it's just not, it's not true.
Hmm. Patricia, Patricia. Oh, this is so good. This is so good because it is because in listening to you speak, you do have that strength and you do have that power, but you're saying you got to know how to balance that out in what you project. You're
Mhm.
not saying that you should appear weak and needy like a damsel in distress, but
Mhm.
you're saying that you need to
Be
monitor.
vulnerable.
Oh,
You need to be vulnerable,
okay.
especially to
Okay.
your children. You can't be a bad cop all the time. You can't be the person that's invincible, right? I've made mistakes. I've cried and I said, I need you to forgive me. Will you forgive me? I'll wait. I was out of
Wow.
line when I did this. I should have done this a different way. And I'm sorry, Nathaniel. Maybe you need some time. I think it's important for them to see you
Mhm.
and for you to be transparent and for you to be sincere with them. And I think that's the way you maintain your level of influence, when they see you as a real person and when you are consistent and you're reliable and trustworthy.
And you're speaking to the married woman in me, saying
Yeah.
that you like for even for me listening to you, I'm like, yeah, sometimes as women, we have this desire to be everything to everybody, and then
Every
it does
time.
end up, and then we do end up crashing or falling into depression or extreme stress because people aren't offering help because we don't look like we need help. You don't ask random people driving in their car, do you need me to help you change your tire? Like, you don't, if
Mhm.
you don't look like you need help, no one's going to ask you if you need help. And that could be
Mhm.
some of the reason why we have trouble accessing that village and creating those relationships, because
That's right.
we put on this superwoman cape all the time, and we don't want to ever say I need help. And I
Oh,
don't think that is a single woman problem. I think it's a challenge as women that
mhm.
we have to, I think it's a challenge as mothers, especially when you're so used to covering and providing and doing this for your kids and that for your kids. We forget that we have to be, what you said, vulnerable. We have to allow ourselves that.
But when you cover your like, our parents, we grew up in, and our parents used to bully us all the time in front of people. And we were so embarrassed, and I was really, really careful. You have to know your child. What works for one child may not work for another, right? Knowing the difference between your children. I only had the one child, but I learned very
Mhm.
early he was a very sensitive kid, and so that I needed to be mindful of how I communicated with him. So I really never yelled at him. It was never going to be a spanking thing,
Right.
but he always listened. I always did follow through. If I said, I said, if you do that one more time, it's going to be a problem. I'm going to take this away. Or, you're going to your bed, right? I always followed through. So he knew I was going to make good on my promise, whether it was good or bad. So if I
Mm.
promised him something good, I always came through. And if I couldn't, I told him that I couldn't, and this is why. But it would never became a thing where I said, "Oh, never did remember." Like it
Yeah.
never became a thing where I just didn't honor my word, right? So I think that also allows you to continue to keep. They look to you for advice.
Yes.
My son said to me, he goes, "I still think you know everything." He's 18 and he says, "I still think you know
And
everything."
you probably do. I'm not gonna say somebody wants to know, when is the book coming out, Patty? Yes, Bishop Riley. I want to know the same thing, because you have so much wisdom. So much wisdom. Someone, Heather, said that we need to be vulnerable, be authentic, and be transparent. And I love this question from a mom. How do you project vulnerability when you actually are the person doing all of the work? What could that look like? And that would be a question, I think, that's perfect for you, because you are raising a son, but how do you give him the strength that he needs to see, but also show him that you're vulnerable? And I think you talked about that when you talked about apologizing to him when necessary,
Yeah, because
right?
sometimes you get tired. Sometimes you had a bad day at work. You come home and you snap. That's a good opportunity for you to go back and say, "You know what, babe, I'm really sorry. Mom snapped at you earlier. That wasn't right. And I'm sorry. I really will try. I had a really rough day today." And maybe even talk about your day, depending on how old your
Yeah.
child is, so that they can see that, oh, mom, it's not hunky dory. Mom's not having fun at
Yeah.
work. Mama's doing work, real work. And she's coming home and doing more work. I always remind my son, because he loves to eat and he will eat down everything that's not nailed down. Right. And then I have to remind him, you live in a community.
Right.
So if you're the chief and if someone hunts the food, you
Hmm.
can't eat it all.
Right.
Otherwise, the person who hunts for the food will not be strengthened to do the hunting. And I said, you have to remember the other people in your community. You have a responsibility here to do your part within the community. I'm not asking you to take out the garbage because I need you to do it. I can do it myself, but you have to
You're a
pull your
part
weight
of a
in the community.
community.
That's
I
right.
love that you do that, because it's almost as if I wish you were there when I was growing up. Because my mom would go clean the washroom. She wouldn't give me such a reason that would make me say, yeah, you're
Oh, I can
right.
clean
Like,
the washroom.
I'm a part of a community. She
Mhm.
would just say, go clean the washroom.
Yeah,
And I
cook,
think
clean
what,
out.
what we're learning is
First up your
we
list.
need to, but by teaching them that, we're actually empowering them to be
Absolutely.
strong and independent, and just kids that can give back to this world in a very real way. And Michelle actually said something that's so true. She said, historically, Black women have not been permitted to be vulnerable. So
Mhm.
it is something that we struggle with, but we have to be mindful of it. That's why conversations like tonight are so important, because it allows you to audit. And that's the word that I've shifted in my life, from reflecting to auditing. Because audit
Mhm.
means you think of where you are, where you need to be and the learning in between and who and
That's
what
right.
can help you get there. And as
Mhm.
women, Black women, we need to think about that. Black
Mhm.
men who are watching, you need to ask yourselves, do you allow your wife to feel
Create.
vulnerable?
Do
Or
you
do you,
create space?
yes, or are
You know,
you
you
putting
said
the cape
something.
on her back?
You said something to me at the beginning of the conversation. What can married people do? I
Mhm.
think that it's also really important when we move, especially in church communities where some parents are married, is that recognizing that there are moments when they don't have to speak to the
Mm,
thing. Just like how we are in this race conversation, there are round tables where we get to have dialogue with our white counterparts, and there are moments where the dialogue is for their listening pleasure. That they are privileged now from a different standpoint where they get to listen to what we have to say and not
yes.
necessarily be in the seat of contribution.
I love that. That listen, Patricia, your wisdom is just. I need you guys to give Patricia some love in these comments. I need to see, I love you, Patricia. Fill up the comments, flood it up, flood it up. But
Thank
this
you, God.
conversation is so necessary because usually, even when we ask people to speak on parenting, it's usually somebody who is married with like 2.5 children. And to hear your voice and to hear every time we speak, I am just so enriched and empowered by your wisdom. Like
Thank you.
you are a gift to the body, and I just pray and I speak into your life that singing may get you into lots of rooms, but I pray that people will be wise enough to let you speak, and if they don't make you speak, just start talking because they're going to give you the microphone, because your wisdom is just so deep,
Thank
and you're
you.
not afraid to call us out and to make us feel that accountability that is so important for us to change our actions. So, Patricia, we're
Thank
gone over with time, but that's okay because this has
you.
been incredible.
Thank you so much for
I'm
having me.
so grateful that you said yes when I asked you. And as I
Oh, for
said to you
sure.
before, whenever people ask me about the perspective of single moms, you are the first person that comes to mind. Not just because you are a believer or because you are a strong woman, but because you have an amazing son. So the
Thank you.
things you're saying, I can see the fruit of them. And I know if we added your son to this conversation, he would just be echoing the things that you are saying. So I want to thank you so
Thank you
much
so much for having me.
for being a part of this conversation. I'm going to take you from the stream, but don't leave. I'm going to come back to you
Okay.
after I end the broadcast. So
Yep.
thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. This is not the last time. And I believe what Damien said. I want to see that manuscript come out. I want to see the manuscript because I think you have a lot to say to change the way we see what singleness. There were so many things that you said, so many things that you said that I think people are going to rewatch this replay and their lives are going to be changed. So
Thank
thank
you
you
so much. Thank
so
you.
much. And I will talk to you in just 1 minute.
Bye, everybody.
So I know that you enjoyed that because I did. Please, if you have not subscribed to this YouTube channel, you want to subscribe so that you can be notified whenever I put up a new video. Also, turn your reminders on. We will be back next week, Monday. So do not forget to subscribe and like and turn your notifications on. And then when the video is processed by YouTube or whatever they have to do in their digital world, please share this video. You are amazing parents, every single person who's watching. We have ups and we have downs, we have challenges. If you are a single mother watching this, you are an empowered parent. You may not feel like it all the time, you may not even look like it all the time, but you are. The Bible says you can do all things. I say this almost every week, and raising your children is included in those things. When you feel like you are weak, allow his strength to perfect you so that you can feel strong. When you're feeling weak, tap to your village. Find those people that can support you and help you walk this journey. And if you have children and you are not in a church where your children are being fed, I will do a shameless plug right now. If you are in the West, come check out Kingdom House Christian Center. If you are in the East, check out Pastor Chantel and Andrew at Surf City. Find a place where your children can fall in love with Jesus Christ. As Patricia said, I will echo her words. It is our responsibility. So until next week, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. And remember that you are an empowered parent. Thank you for tuning in.